Okay, let's work some more with the average rate of change of a function. So let's assume we're given some function f of x, and we have two distinct points on that graph. x1 f of x1 and x2 f of x2. Remember, this is like an x1 y1. This is like an x2 y2. To calculate the average rate of change of some function between x1 and x2, we have to perform the operation f of x2 minus f of x1 over x2 minus x1. All this is the slope formula, but instead of saying y2 minus y1, we're using function notation. F of x2 minus f of x1. All it is a change in y over the change in x between two distinct points. So let's practice with this parabola. Sketch the graph of f of x equal x squared. So if we did it by hand or whatever we chose to do, we would end up with the graph of a parabola. Well, that's the best I can do here. And let's find the average rate of change between a couple of values. So here it's going to be between 0 and 1. So here is my 0, 0 point. Here is this point. So I would draw a secant line between those two and calculate the slope of the line between those 2 points. Now this graph is kind of small, so it's sort of hard to visualize, but I've got 2 points, draw a secant line, I'm going to calculate basically the slope. Well, the formula says it is f of x2 minus f of x1 all over x2 minus x1. Well, the function is f of x equal x squared. So let's use that function to make our calculation. So it's going to be f of, what's x2? 1 minus f of 0. So it's f of 1 minus f of 0 over x2 minus x1. 1 minus 0. Well, let's go to the function f, plug in a 1, and see what we get. 1 squared. Let's go to f, plug in a 0, what we get? 0 squared. All over 1 minus 0. Well, 1 squared minus 0 and 1 minus 0 just gives me 1 over 1, which is 1. This is the average rate of change, or basically it is the slope of this secant line that I drew over there. Try that again. Let me draw another parabola. And let's look at a different value here. We want to calculate the rate of change, average rate of change in the second case from 1 to 2. From here to here. So I would draw a secant line. This is x equal 1 and x equal 2. Drawing a secant line between those 2 points, I'm calculating the slope of the line between those 2 points. Well, it's going to be positive because my secant line is rising. Let's use the formula. Basically, we're calculating the slope, so it's written function notation as f of x2 minus f of x1 all over x2 minus x1. The function is x squared, so I'll have f of 2 minus f of 1 all over 2 minus 1. F of 2 is 4, f of 1 is 1. So I end up with, what? 3 over 1, which is 3. That tells me what? The average rate of change of this function between 1 and 2 is 3. The slope of the secant line between 1 and 2 is 3. That's a positive 3. Notice this line is steeper than that one. The steeper the line, the higher the slope. Let me draw one more parabola and let's see what happens here. Let's get a visual on what's going on with our secant lines and slopes. Here I want to go between -2 and 0. -2 is here, 0 is there, so I've got the point -2 there, 0 there. Drawing a secant line between those 2 points, and I could have done a better job, but hopefully you get the idea. The secant line is this line. It's a falling line, so the slope of that secant line is going to be negative. Let's see if that happens when we calculate the slope of that line. It's f of x2 minus f of x1 all over x2 minus x1. So it's going to be f of 0 minus f of -2 all over 0 minus a -2. Going back to the original function right here, f of x equal x squared, f of 0 is equal to 0, f of -2 will be 4 over 0 plus 2. So -4 over 2, which is -2. I knew it was going to be negative because it was a falling line, and all I did was calculate the slope of the line between these 2 points. Really, my points are 0, 0, and -2, 4. 0, 0, and -2, 4. Let me make sure my calculation's okay. F of 0. Yeah, watch your signs. F of -2, when you square a -2, you get a positive 4. This negative is in the formula, so the negative drops down there. So that tells me, again, I just said it, that's the slope of this secant line between x equal -2 and x equals 0. So you'll see, you'll have problems like this to practice in the assignments that you'll do online, and an application problem, a couple of application problems here, and a writing and mathematics problem. So that should complete this section 2.4.